My name is Victor. I am the occult technician, and this is Mind War. Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. Join the Mind War today. Enlist at patreon.com/mindwar. Now, back to the show. Welcome back to Mind War, folks. I appreciate you being here. We have a lot to cover today, so let's get started. Folks, we're going to pick up where we left off in the book Magic, History, Theory, Practice by Dr. Ernst Schertl. And then in the second half of today's episode, we're going to continue on my magical journey over on my Instagram page. You can follow me on Instagram at The Occult Technician. But we're going to pick up on page 30. This is where we left off. And it says this: since all magic is in one way or another based on animism and demonism, contrary, for example, to our empirical domination of nature, it is explainable that the cult of the demons is also at the fore outside of the closer area of magic. The demonic basic outlook crosses all areas of life. And since the connection with the demons is only possible in the magical way, the magical actions and thinking manifest themselves in every condition of life and in every smallest handling. The whole being is layered around a magic demonic center and receives its purpose from there, its blessing and its strength. But this is religion. All religion is only a form of magic, and all magic is only applied religion. I don't think the author means religion the way that we know it today, where we are forced to learn only from one book. We are forced into one of the, tens of thousands of denominations that stem from that same book. They all teach the same thing. Religion, where we are told the only way to get answers are from some guy standing at the front of this giant cathedral, reading from the book and interpreting it for us. I don't know that that's the way. That doesn't, I mean, you could say, Victor, well, you're standing behind a podium reading from in a book, interpreting for us as well, but we're doing this together. We're going through the book page by page, and we're implementing the things that we learn into our lives. And I just don't know that that's how regular religion works. I just don't see it that way. To me, they preach more faith than they do practice. But this, writes Alfred Lehman, how closely cult and magic were interwoven together follows explicitly from the incantations. Very often these are introduced with appeals to the pertaining gods, so that we would rather call them hymns, songs, or praise, if they would not explicitly be called incantations in the documents. So Rudolf Utzinger, another author, I guess, Rudolf Utzinger also paints a vivid picture of this convergence of magic and demonic lines in the religion of the occult. The religious privileges of the mature man are explained to a child in a tender, sensitive way in order that it gets to know the demonic mask dancers and the mythological vital forces since its youth, and on the occasion of the Kachina celebration. The child gets well acquainted with how to beg the gods for rain, fertility, and the benedictory strength of the sun. The cult objects bear witness to the conscious symbolism in form and color. To the outsider, these things, rainbows, bolts of lightning, corn cobs, rain clouds, may seem dull as long as he is not able to decipher the foreign phenomenal world. Behind the language, which is clear and certain, in its forms hides a world of pious shudder and childlike, as well as serious mysteriousness. The contours change into luminosity of magical immersion. The figures have the reason and the obsession of magical vision, a rush of naturalness, an intuition about the emotional turmoil of another ulterior pool of light. It's awesome that they talk about teaching their children about magic and the strength of the symbolism, the consciousness in the symbolism, teaching them what the symbols mean. And I think we miss some of that today. Symbolism is all around us, but it's been continued to be kept occult, to be kept hidden, the meaning behind the symbols. And we don't need to do that. We can, like the author says here, in a tender and sensitive way, teach the aspects of these demonic forces. Again, what is a demon? It's simply a human characteristic. Revenge is a human characteristic that you can tenderly teach your children about. And you can, give scenarios, right? So if you have a child and they are, playing with another child and that child hurts them in some way, physically hurts them in some way, maybe in a way that was on accident. If your child's first reaction is revenge, where they attack back, they bite, they scratch, they punch, they claw, whatever it is they may do, they hit with an object, whatever it is, that is the demonic, right? That is that natural characteristic in us of revenge and anger for being hurt, being harmed. We want that revenge. And when you act upon it right away, you then just attack right back. And now what do we have? Instead of one child who may have been hurt because of an accident, now we have two children hurt. One who may have done it on accident, the other who responded on purpose. And now things are just worse. Where again, we have to teach the children maybe reacting that way isn't the best. Maybe getting an understanding of what the scenario is, maybe how the accident occurred. And of course, this is difficult to teach a child. It's difficult for adults to learn this. We see this all the time, adults reacting to the situations that they're in. But sometimes we need to step back from it and understand this instant act of revenge is only going to make things worse in our life, right? And we see that quite often. I think recently there was a very sad story in the news where a young man was shot and killed by a police officer. Now, from my understanding, it was a logical and necessary killing, right? This teenager was doing something wrong and had to be stopped. But what happened is the father of that teenager then within the next few days, I believe it was the very next day or a few days after, went and just killed a police officer as revenge. I don't even think it was the police officer that killed his son. I think it was just a random cop in their town. And so now that father is going to jail for the rest of his life. That's what we're talking about. Was that revenge worth it for that man? Or could he have used that anger, that demonic fire that was in him, brought about by the death of his son, that demonic fuel, that pendulum, he had swung so far because of the loss of his son. He was so angry that he decided to retaliate and express that anger through killing a police officer, through getting revenge. But again, now he's going to jail for the rest of his life. Is that the best way that he could have gotten revenge? Or could he have tried to become a politician, become the mayor of that town, and then become the head of the police force? Maybe he could have tried to become a police officer himself, or start a training thing for police officers, right? That there were a million different ways that he could have went about that. But he allowed that demonic fire in him to swing so far on the pendulum that it ultimately led to disaster in his life. And that's what we see when we call someone demonic, that they're possessed by a demon or something like that, right? It is a natural characteristic of humanity that has taken over in their life and has become too dominant. It's been allowed to run away. And that's where the sickness comes in, right? We got to be careful of that. We have to be careful about how we react to the situations that we're put in. It says, all concrete worship of God or gods grows out of a magical foundation. That is why early on the terms magician and priest have one and the same meaning. That's interesting. The priests of today would tell us that the magicians of today and of the ancient times are all evil, right? We're practicing the dark arts, and those things are not to be done. It's to be forbid, right? But at one time, magician and priest were one and the same type of title. The magician is the servant and the representative of the deity, in a sense, its tyrant. And in a state of ecstasy, he is even its direct incarnation. There is a beautiful sentence that we're going to come across here. And I don't want to spoil it, right? But much like I've talked about this art project and the way that I created it and the reason that I'm doing it. Again, when I started it, I was desperate. And I asked these demonic forces for help. And I said, here's what we're going to do. Here's the deal that we're going to make. And they agreed. This was a communion and a partnership between myself and the demonic forces out there. I said, if you show me your power and you use it in my life and allow me to harness it in my life, I will promote you for 7 years. That's why this is a 7-year art project. I am dedicating 7 years to it. We are at the 3.5-year mark right now. We're right in the middle of it. I have 3.5 years to go. And this is me keeping up my end of the deal. They've made the transformation in my life. They've shown me their power. And now my job for the next 3.5 years is to share that with you, how the transformation occurred. And I'm doing it in different forms of media. And right now, podcasting is the current form, the iteration of that. And in the future, it's going to be in different ways. And you'll find that out over the next 3.5 years. But until then, we're going to continue podcasting. Okay? And again, it's through us, through our bodies, that these demonic forces get represented. And again, demonic forces, greed, lust, wrath, envy, all of these natural human characteristics that we deal with every day, that's what demonic means. The monsters that we see as demons are just illustrative representations of the human conditions that we deal with throughout life. It's easier in ancient times to pass those stories down through these characters instead of trying to explain them in a psychological way, like out of a textbook like we do today. Instead, they just used these monsters to represent the different human characteristics. Again, if gluttony is your demon, it's going to show physically through your obese, sick body. If that's one edge of the pendulum of gluttony, the other side is if it takes over and you eat nothing and you become anorexic and bulimic and now you're sick and dying because you're too skinny. That's the other side. That's where people say they are possessed by a demon. What we're trying to do is meet that demon in the middle. They're going to show you exactly what they need. And again, with gluttony, they need healthy foods. The demons want you to be healthy. They want you to find the center X, the extreme center, instead of the extreme ends of the pendulum. That's where the ugly side of the demons show themselves. But they shouldn't be looked at as scary. They're teachers. That ugly side of the demon shows us what not to do. Quit being afraid of it. Be thankful that they're there to show you in black and white what it means to go over the edge. This is already signified in the costume, in the emblems, and in the whole manner of appearance. The magician and priest wears the attributes of his demon. And in the Assyrian-Babylonian cultural sphere, for example, he wears a pyramid-shaped or conical hat, which is reminiscent of the mountains of gods and the old temple towers. Or he wears some kind of a horned headgear, which is reminiscent of the bull and the ram cults. He is dressed in a long white coat, which represents a very primeval divine symbol. And in his hand he carries the rod of the ruler, rod of the magician, which is from time immemorial a symbol of the godly fertility and almightiness. So again, throughout your work, you're going to find your costume. Your buddy Victor here is wearing right now. This is part of Officer Vic's uniform. I thought this would be a good way to get this series on magic started. Wearing all black, sort of a sense of mourning for the loss of my mother. Those of you, again, that are following along know my mother passed away just a few months ago as we worked through the Gateway Experience tapes. That was an amazing series. If you haven't watched it yet, go back. Mind War Season 3, Episode 1 starts a year-long journey through the Gateway Experience tapes. Absolutely amazing. But again, you're going to come up with your own costumes, whatever feels right for you when you're doing your magical work. And again, they're talking here. The priests do the same thing. Look at every religion out there right now. I mean, look at Catholicism, folks. If the shit that they do is not considered evil and scary and demonic and all that stuff, I mean, come on. Look at the clothes that they wear. Look at the type of symbols that they carry around with them. Look at the giant, Gothic cathedrals that they're in. And they say what I'm doing is scary. I'm sitting here with my little candles and my little tributes and all that stuff. That's what they're afraid of. That's what they call evil. Come on, look in the mirror, right? But you're going to come up with your own thing. Whatever makes you feel comfortable, whatever makes you feel powerful. That's the beauty of this chaos magic, if that's the true term for what we're doing here. And I think it is. Gathering information wherever we can find it and applying it to our own personal practices. Frequently, masks are directly applied to further clarify the oneness of the magician with the god. So that's interesting. Again, if you want to create masks that help represent the spirits that you're working with, go ahead. This is the beauty of the art. This is the art side of the dark arts. The demonic cult consists of the performance of mystical ceremonies, which refer to the character and the form of activity of the relevant demon, and consists of the making of sacrifices by which the magician connects himself and his tribe with the deity and always acquires new fullness of strength. So again, these activities that we're doing through our ceremonies, they show us a connection, right, with the deities, the spirits that we're working with. And this talk of sacrifice, we're going to talk about sacrifices and what those sacrifices mean. I've found a few different definitions that have personally occurred in my life to show what that really means. And one of them that I'll share with you right now is this. And this is just what I've been talking about. This deal that I made with the devil, if you will. This commitment that I made to the demons, that if they were to show me their power and how to harness their power and commune with them and be in partnership with them in order to transform my life, the commitment that I made to them is that I would share with all of you and promote them and what they can do in your life. That's what I'm doing here through the podcast. That was the commitment that I made, right? That is the sacrifice. I didn't go buy a goat or a chicken and sacrifice them for my sins, or sacrifice them in order to make money or get a new car or become famous or something like that. There was no sacrifice like that. Nothing was killed, right? In order for me to obtain success in what I'm doing here. The sacrifice is me. I offered myself up as the sacrifice. I offered my time, my effort, my energy. What you see right now is my sacrifice. Me doing this podcast, just as I promised that I would, is the sacrifice. Because you know what? It's a beautiful sunny day. I could be outside, sitting around doing nothing, maybe smoking a little weed, drinking some lemonade or iced tea out in the sun, and just chilling right now, which I'm going to be doing as soon as this episode is over. But the sacrifice is coming down here and doing this work, putting myself out there, okay? I get nervous coming down here and making this podcast, right? I was so nervous at just introducing myself through social media. Again, up until 2022, when I started on Instagram, there's almost nothing of me on the social media online, right? There isn't much out there. And it took a lot to kind of go into the spotlight, if you will. Again, I know that there's not millions of viewers and all that type of stuff. Just my small group of like-minded individuals, my first Earth Battalion, my fellow mind warriors, citizen samurais, guerrilla gurus, and warrior monks. And I appreciate all of you being here. That's so important to me. But that's what it is. That's where the sacrifice came from. It's me. Again, I didn't sacrifice an animal and expect to be given something. That's crazy. It doesn't work that way, right? That type of sacrifice may show your commitment to what you're doing, and especially in an ancestral and tribal way. They didn't just sacrifice a goat and then let it go to waste. They basically butchered an animal in a ceremonial way and probably gave thanks and then consumed it, right? So again, we got to get away from this idea of sacrifice the way it's portrayed in the movies and stuff. The sacrifice is personal. It's the effort you have to put in to become the person you want to be. You're going to have to sacrifice your old self to become the new self. That's the sacrifice we're talking about. The sacrifice is the most mysterious fact in the whole demonic cult. It's mysterious no more. I just shared with you the answer. The point is not only to give the demon any kind of things as presents, to propitiate him in this manner, propitiate, but its real importance is the mystical becoming one with the demon itself. We're not giving them presents through our sacrifice. We are becoming one with them, communing with them in a partnership. Because again, demons are just an illustrative representation of human nature, our basic human characteristics that we all feel and we all have to deal with. And it's through understanding them and I don't want to say controlling them, but controlling ourselves in them. Not allowing the gluttony and the lust and the greed and the revenge and the pride and all of those things to overtake us and destroy our lives. Instead, we work with them to become powerful. With the sacrifice, the demon always gains new fullness of the blood and reality, which the acting magician and his community are saturated with new demonic strengths. Okay. When you sacrifice yourself in order to become one with the demon, you're going to gain, the demon gains fullness of the blood and reality. And what does that mean? Without us, without our physical body, the demons have no way to live. They have no way to represent themselves. Again, that human characteristic. Back to gluttony with the overeating. When you do the overeating and you are obese and morbidly obese and sick and dying because of the poisons that you're putting into your body to try to satiate this unending hunger that you have, that is the demon being shown in a very ugly way. The same as when you're anorexic and bulimic and you starve yourself. The demon wants beauty, strength, health. It wants center X, extreme centrism. That's what it wants to show. And when it does that, it becomes reality. It gets to live through us, through its strength, and show what it truly means, what this demonic entity really is, what this demonic characteristic really is. It wants to be perfect, and it wants to help you get into that perfect center, that perfect balance, right? Here's another little piece that I had highlighted here. For that reason alone, it is obvious that magic without an explicit demonic cult is essentially not possible, because only with the cult and with the sacrifice does the demonic strength grow and magical abilities increase. If you cannot sacrifice yourself to these practices, if you cannot sacrifice your old self of being lazy, of being slothful, of being gluttonous, of being too lustful, of being too proud, if you can't set those things aside, you're never going to grow in the strength of these demonic powers. Victor, what are you talking about? How are you setting aside your pride to make your little podcast? Folks, I have told you so many embarrassing stories already, and we're just scratching the surface, okay? As we go through my magical journey, and you see my early work, I look back at it, and it is very embarrassing. There's so many things that I just wanted to delete after I posted. I'm like, oh, God, that is so embarrassing. You know, weeks or months later, you just go, dude, what was I thinking? But I left those things up because I knew that today was going to come where I was going to have to explain those embarrassing art forms to you. Those times where I gushed out my emotions in a very embarrassing way and posted them on social media. We're going to go through those. So that's where I set my pride aside. Because I know it's more important. It feels better to share those embarrassing stories than to hide from them and continue to be embarrassed. I'm no longer embarrassed by these things. Yeah, they were silly. Yeah, it was emotionally raw. Yeah, it was cringe. I get it. But that's okay. We're working through those things. We're setting the pride aside, and we're sharing with each other. That's what's more important. That's when we find that center with our demonic characteristics, right? So it goes on here to say, Teal writes, so this sounds like another author. It says, Teal writes about the importance of the sacrifice. The gods depend on the sacrifice and long for it. Like a bull does, the god roar for the sacrifice. The god longs for the sacrifice and for its master, the almighty Brahman, the one making the sacrifice. That's us. We are the Brahmins, okay? What happens inside the sacrifice is described with quaint verbalisms and with a sometimes incomprehensible symbolism as the most important in heaven and on earth. The sacrifice gives and creates everything. In this way does the sacrificial hymn, the sacrificial formula, the Brahmin obtain domineering power. The dependence of the gods on the sacrifice is even carried so far that one thinks of the god as a creation of the sacrifice. In the sacrifice lies the secret of existence, the soul of all beings, the soul of all gods. For that reason, the power of the one making the sacrifice is unlimited. Your power as the sacrifice is unlimited. It's up to you how much power you seek. It says here that when people see the sacrifice in action, they often attain that the sacrifice itself created the God that it sacrificed itself to. So what are we talking about here? What does it mean? So let's look at regular religion, okay? The Judeo-Christian Islamic religions. They all have their priest class. Those men, it's normally men who are the priests, preachers, deacons, whatever you want to call them, imams, right? Rabbis. They are in a way sacrificing their lives to now teach this religion. And often people wrongly associate the religion as coming from them in a way, that they are the source of the religion. The building is the source of the religion. The book is the source of the religion. The institution or organization itself as a whole is the religion. And that's not true. That's a lie. The religion, the force, the cosmic dynamic force, the absolute, the demonic powers, they are within us as the individuals. And together, when you work together and put these powers in concert and work towards one goal, that's where the religion is formed. That's where the cult is formed. But it's not created through that person. Again, you look at a Christian preacher today. They didn't write the Bible. They didn't come up with this fairy tale from thousands of years ago. This nonsense has been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands of years now. Through the 2,000 years of the Dark Ages and before, this fairy tale has dominated the earth. The preachers didn't come up with it. The religion doesn't get their power from them. They get their power through this old ancient story. And it's kind of the opposite of what we're doing here. They take their power from a already structurized, created falsity, this fairy tale. It already has power. Religion already has too much power and authority over our lives, all the way up to politics. I mean, every freaking politician, whatever side, they all bow down to the same religion. They all have to say they're Christian in some form. You can tell they're lying. You know that they're lying to you, right? But they still have to say it. And so the men and women who join those religions, they get their power through this structure, this authority structure that's already been created. That's the opposite of what we're doing here. We are building our own power, our own strength, our own authority through our practices that we do ourselves as individuals. It's outside of any type of cult setting. Now again, you find like-minded individuals, you create your coven, your first Earth Battalion, go for it. But as the individual, we get our power through our own sacrifice. We sacrifice our own lives. We let go of the past. Maybe we have to sacrifice our alcoholism. Maybe we have to sacrifice our greed and money is no longer the thing that drives our life. Maybe we have to sacrifice our lustful ways, our drug addiction, whatever it is. Those are the sacrifices. You have to give up those things, those addictions. And when you do, you become more powerful from it. And again, those addictions are what people see as demonic. They see the ugly side of it. But they don't understand as once you start to commune with that demon, then you become more powerful. Because look at the people who've quit doing drugs. They're rising, man. Right? You see it over and over and over again. People who found success in their art form, they get a little too ahead of themselves. The drinking, the drugs take over. Their art form starts to slide. They find sobriety in whatever form, and boom, they get more successful than ever. That's what we're talking about. Now, it would be best if you don't become addicted in the first place. Let's try to avoid that. But that's an example of it, right? Breaking your addiction brings you power. And that's part of the sacrifice. You have to sacrifice those old addictions, right? And when you do, the power of the one making the sacrifice is unlimited. We can't say that enough. Who knows how powerful you're going to be? The point of the sacrifice is the unification and the amalgamation with the demon, and originally had very bloody and orgiastic patterns. Dang. Dude, magic sounds way cooler in the old days, but we do with what we can today. We have to live in, probably safer and less harmful and sad and scary, ways of doing things, but that's okay. Since initially the demon is always thought of as incarnated in a human, the oldest sacrifice is the human sacrifice. And since the sacrifice always consists of eating of the sacrificed one, we clearly recognize the magical sacred roots of what we call cannibalism. Holy moly, folks. We are deep into it now. We are not going to be doing any cannibalism here in the Mind War, okay? If you and your cult find yourself, being led down a path to cannibalism, you may want to turn around. You may want to stop yourself and just take a moment to reevaluate where you guys are going, all right? So what does it really mean? Okay, obviously we are not sacrificing humans and eating their flesh. That's not how this works anymore, okay? We appreciate that that's what they thought in the old days or whatever, but that's not how we do it. Again, we are the sacrifice. So when we talk about cannibalism, eating the flesh, just a few episodes ago, we talked about eating the bread and drinking the wine. The sacrament, right? What is the bread in our world, right? For the Christians that eat the bread, they say that was the flesh of Jesus Christ. You're supposed to be eating his flesh in some cannibalistic form of worship. That's what that is, folks. They are pointing back to these old, ancient, cannibalistic ways. That's what you're doing. When you go to church and you eat the bread that's supposed to represent Jesus's flesh and the eating of his flesh, and you drink the wine, which is supposed to be representing the drinking of Jesus's blood, you are participating in a cannibalistic representation, okay? Wake up call to all of you Christians out there who do this. You are practicing cannibal representation, a cannibalistic ceremony, okay? You're the evil one. You're doing the scary, demonic, evil, satanic rituals. Because here in the Mind War, we associate the eating of the flesh, the cannibalism, with the magic mushroom. The mushroom is the flesh that we eat. And what happens? We sacrifice our physical bodies. We eat the mushroom. It takes its effect over us. And not only do we get to experience the effects of the magic mushrooms in our physical body, but the demons that we commune with experience it as well. They experience it through us. Again, that human characteristic experiences it through us. Whatever issue you're dealing with that you're coming up against, again, the lust, the greed, the gluttony, the pride, the wrath, whatever it is, you bring it with you into your mushroom trip. It experiences the mushrooms as well. The issue that you're dealing with that is making you so angry, that's the demon showing its ugly side, wanting revenge, wanting you to go out and get in trouble and put yourself in danger in order to get revenge for against who or whatever hurt you, right? But instead, you eat that flesh of the mushroom and you bring that demon with you. You bring it inside. And the demon experiences the mushroom along with you. And it opens up. And it starts to look at that event that hurt you in different ways. And now together, you two are exploring it. And you're realizing the different options because you're using your imagination and you're saying to yourself, if I follow through with the revenge as planned, what are the outcomes going to be? We start to look 1, 2, 3 steps ahead. If I go out and get my revenge in a violent way, what is going to happen to me? You're going to get arrested and you're going to get put in jail for the rest of your life, and then it's all over. And then there's nothing else you can do. Or you stop yourself from that knee-jerk reaction, that violent revenge that you want to enact against the person that hurt you. And instead, you think of smarter ways. And instead of one small event, maybe you spend the rest of your life getting your revenge against that person. Some people say just living your best life is the best revenge out there. Just letting it roll off your back, the thing that hurt you, and say, you know what? I'm not even going to participate anymore. This person hurt me. I'm not going to go back to them. I'm not going to give them more fuel to hurt me again. I'm not going to put myself in a position where I am in trouble because of how I reacted to this person hurting me. Doesn't make any sense, right? Why make things worse for yourself? And that is a difficult lesson to learn. Turning the other cheek. Is that what we're talking about here? I don't know. I know we've talked about before that forgiveness is a sin. I believe that. Do not forgive anyone. Don't forget what they've done to you, and do not forgive them. You can move past it, but you don't need to forgive them. And God forbid you forget the pain that others have brought to your life. Because when you do that, maybe you let that guard down and they come back and hurt you again. Don't do that. Don't let it happen. Okay, so that was a very interesting paragraph again on cannibalism and the truth behind it. I truly do believe that the Christians who do the Eucharist are practicing a representation of cannibalism. I think they are the ones that are practicing evil and demonic rituals and ceremonies. It's not what we're doing here. Let's carry on. The intellectual of today only has a scoffing smile for these things, since from the heights of his bodiless knowledge, he no longer recognizes the deeper connections of reality. That's right. The smartest, book smart nerds out there have no connection to reality. They sit in their ivory towers, regurgitating the knowledge that was passed to them by the authority before them, not asking any questions about where the knowledge came from, how it was derived, nothing like that. Just regurgitating the answers to the questions were asked of you, that will get you to the top of any organization, corporation, and institution. Don't rock the boat, give the answers that you're told to give, and you'll be a star. But your life will be empty and meaningless. You'll just be a puppet of whatever cult you just joined. For the old peoples, the consuming of a body, irrespective of whether animal or human, was something gruesome holy and of darkest magical importance. Even in the moderated religions of our time, we can still see the body origins of individual rights. The bloody origins of individual rights. And rights is R-I-T-E-S. Again, many of the ceremonial things that religions do today, the most mainstream religions, again, the most mainstream religion in the West today is Christianity. And I believe that the majority of the Christian denominations do a ceremony where they eat the bread, which is supposed to represent eating the human flesh of Jesus Christ, and they drink the wine, which is supposed to represent drinking the blood of Jesus Christ. This is a representation of cannibalism. It's insane. This is the mainstream in our world today? This is what the mainstream people, every CEO, every head of every organization, corporation, and institution all says that they're one of these three, Judeo-Christian Islamic belief systems. And this is what they do? And the rest of us have to sit here and be told that because we don't participate in their insanity, that we're the bad guys? That we're the lesser beings? That we aren't the chosen ones? What is going on in our world today? We got to wake people up from this. We have to hold that mirror up to them when they call us evil and say what we're doing is evil, and say, dude, every Sunday you're eating flesh and drinking blood like some kind of fucking cannibal zombie. Get out of my face with that bullshit. It's nonsense. And you do all of this, you're doing all of this in order to avoid eternity in hell and damnation. What are you even talking about? Hell isn't something that comes next. Hell is here on earth when you don't get your demons under control. That's what hell is. Hell isn't something that you're going to suffer in the next life. Hell is here. If you're an alcoholic, you're in hell. And you fucking know it. You can't stop yourself. You have to drink every day just to be normal. That's hell. That's hell on earth. That's what that term means. Hell isn't tomorrow. Hell isn't after you die. Hell is here and now. If you are attacked by these type of addictions, or again, when these demons in your life swing to the far ends of the pendulum, you're in hell. But all you got to do is learn from them what they really want of you, and you'll have heaven here on earth. So folks, that was our readings, our work today from the book Magic, History, Theory, Practice by Dr. Ernst Schertl. We ended up on page 34, got a big chapter coming up, and we're going to go do a little bit more, a deeper dive into my magical journey over on my Instagram page at The Occult Technician in just a moment. Okay, welcome back, folks. We're going to continue going, exploring my magical journey over on my Instagram. You can find me at The Occult Technician on Instagram. You're going to scroll all the way towards the bottom. And we're going to look at the next few posts here. And these posts were, again, let's see. It looks like it was posted on June 20th, 2022. Again, these were posts I had made on a separate Instagram account that's now been closed down. And I decided to create the Occult Technician account, and I transferred all these photos over. And the two posts that we're going to look at today actually revolve around the jewelry that I'm wearing. Okay, and now this is very strange for me. I'm not much of a jewelry guy. I never really wore rings. I had a wedding ring for a little while, but I didn't even wear that very often. So what we're talking about here is the ring that I have on my left hand here. This is an obsidian disc, right? Here on my right hand, on my pointer finger, I have a silver ring that just has an X on it. Again, I'm part of Generation X. Here in the Mind War, we talk about Center X, extreme centrism, right? And also the necklace that I'm wearing. Never really wore a necklace very often, but I have one here. And again, these are part of the accoutrements, part of the costumes, the trinkets that you are going to gather as you start your magical journey. These are all things that are going to be important to you. And so what's cool about these this jewelry, right? The company that I got it from, I found on Instagram, and they are called Dad of Sweden is the name of the company. Very strange name, right? Dad of Sweden. And I felt a connection to that because when I first started this, I knew a little bit about my family ancestry. I know much more now. We'll share that later on. But my great-grandfather, so my dad's grandfather, he is an immigrant from Sweden. So just a few generations ago, as a Swedish immigrant, my great-grandfather came here to the United States only speaking Swedish, right? What was his name? Thielander, I believe. So my great-grandpa Thielander. And so again, I knew he was from Sweden. So when I saw this company, Dad of Sweden, making this very cool silver jewelry, I thought, that's interesting. I think I'm going to maybe buy a few pieces from them. And again, I started with the ring and I started with the necklace. Now the necklace, what is cool about it is a skull, but it's a skull on both sides. So it's a double-sided pendant, and there's a skull on both sides. And so every time I wear it in the exact same position, right? One skull facing forward, the other skull facing backwards towards my chest. And what happens is the one that's touching my chest or my shirt, it's constantly being polished, and it's bright and silver. Where the one that's facing forward is tarnished, it's turning black. So in an interesting way, I can use this necklace as a sort of flip of a coin, right? I can use this necklace because it has two distinctive sides if I need to make a decision. Go right or left? What do I do? Keep going or turn back, right? Now, I know we're not supposed to use the bones in order to make decisions. We're not supposed to flip coins in order to make decisions like that in our life, but why not? Maybe sometimes that is what we should do, right? Maybe sometimes that's our only option. But in the first post there that we're looking at again is the necklace. I took a few pictures of it. I was just excited to share that with everyone. Again, as you build up your magical tools, right? And then the next one is of this ring, the obsidian ring. Now, when I first started looking at things to purchase for my magical work, again, the different trinkets and accoutrements, right? I heard of things like crystals, right? We all, hear of crystals with this type of work. And so I started researching it and thinking about it. And I've heard of things like crystal balls and all this stuff. And I thought, I'm just not really into any of that. None of that looks right to me. But when I started to learn about obsidian, and I saw these obsidian rings, and I started to look at the hands of other magicians, not just magicians that you see online, the popular ones today. But when I was a kid, and our neighbor, who are still there today, at least the wife is, they are the oldest people on the cul-de-sac that I grew up on, right? So my dad still lives there. I stay with him most of the time. And his neighbor has been in that house for almost 50 years. It was a husband and wife. Again, the wife is still alive. She's very old now. But the husband died years ago, 20, 30 years ago when I was still young. And he was my teacher for life science. So when I was in school, and I remember he had an obsidian ring just like this. In fact, he turned it around one day and slapped me in the back of the head with it because I was falling asleep in his class, right? But that to me made me realize, oh, maybe he was a magician as well. And I definitely think he was. When I look back at him, I go, oh yeah. He was probably a member of a secret society, so maybe it was more along those lines, especially being such a well-respected teacher, a member of the community. They often are part of the secret societies and stuff. But I thought that was very interesting that he had the same obsidian ring as I do. And I have found the obsidian to be a wonderful representation of the abyss, the darkness where we do a lot of our work. We've talked about that quite a bit in the Gateway Experience tapes, where we go into the sleep dojo. That's the darkness. Or where we go into locale 3 when we're actually having an out-of-body experience and we shoot out into the darkness that's beyond the universe, where we can just sit comfortably and calmly and just live outside of life for a little while, right? The darkness, the abyss, it's a beautiful place. It's not something to be afraid of. And I thought the obsidian was a much better representation for me than, say, other forms of crystals, right? They may have their own power, and different witches and warlocks, right, can use them to their own. But for me, I found the obsidian to be very powerful, and I found a strong attraction to that. Again, with silver. Silver is such a great element. It's fun to work with. I have several silver discs upstairs, the 1 ounce coins that are tarnishing. It's cool to watch them change color. They change almost into like a gasoline type color where there's multiple colors within it. So these again are just things that I purchased, that I brought into my magical practices that had meaning to me, and I've found to be very powerful. And especially things like my obsidian ring here, it's been a great focal point for a lot of my art. It's very interesting, able to use it as an artistic piece. In a lot of ways, almost looks like an eyeball staring back at you in some of my pictures. So again, as you go through your journey, as you gain more and acquire more of these tools, they're all going to have meaning to you. And again, I just wanted to share those 2 posts with you today of how I started out, how I started to collect these things and the type of meaning that they have to me. And again, when you share your story, make sure you explain to people why these things have power in your life and in your magical practices. not because you want other people to do the same thing as you, but because, again, it's through sharing that story that we find similarities. And, oh, maybe I can use this little device in the same way that magician did. It's different, but maybe I use it in the same way, the same technique, right? So, and again, share all that stuff on your social media or whatever art form that you plan on using and sharing your magical journey with. Because again, that's one of the few things. Have your own experiences and share them with others. And as always, folks, I appreciate you being here. And remember, harden your hearts and open your minds, because this is Mind War.